Uh, so I was listening to a fellow Michael James, someone that Sean kind of turned me on to, and he's just this like quite an amazing fellow and shares very generously teachings, Ramana Maharshi's teachings. And in the last satsang, he said something that really stood out, and I try to make notes if things like that happen. And he said, we was talking about mind space and kind of, physical space, but also the mind space. And he said, so from where does mind space appear? And to what does it disappear? This is the true space of pure awareness. And it reminded me instantly of a technique that Shinzen Young often recommends people who are interested in more the kind of transcendent or non-dual path, which is his just note gone. And it's a technique that I did indeed find really valuable on my own path over the last few years since I learned it from Shinzen. So I thought we'll kind of make a stop with that technique if you feel like exploring that. And as always, like if you're just like there, like if you're like, no, I'm just going to rest as absolute knowing, pure awareness, if you're already there or you're going to slip into that, then of course, we maybe don't need to take the preliminary steps. So without further ado, let's fasten our seatbelts and get settled into our posture, our little journey together. And I think for even myself, I'd appreciate a little bit of attention on the breath to settle. I feel like my energy is a little jangly, and yeah, jangly is a good word. So if you'd like to have your eyes closed, to do that, I would invite you to have your eyes closed just to be able to hold the attention a little more easily inward. But if they're open, just maintain a soft, unfocused gaze. So we can just slightly bring the attention to the breath. We'll just be here a couple of minutes. And notice how you're connecting to the breath. Like through what sensations? And some of us may have a very kind of local, zoomed in area where we connect with the breath and nostrils, for example, the upper chest, the belly. While others may have a more global, zoomed out, kind of whole body experience with the breath. And you may toggle, you may just kind of explore different aspects of the breathing cycle. And I'm going to invite you to just very gently invite the exhalations to lengthen and slow. Like a 5% effort, very subtle, lengthening and extending that exhale. And maybe we can take the next few breaths just visualizing, imagining that the breath is coming in through every pore of the body. So this is a very whole body breath. And the breath is exiting every pore in all directions, back of the body, sides, front, equally. And we're now going to shift our attention into the mental mind space, thought space. And notice what that experience is like for you, even locating the mind space. And our thoughts arise as mental talk and or mental visualization. So just initially, let's open to both aspects of that thinking space. And see if you can identify, oh, there's the mental talk arising and passing. There's some images appearing on my internal mental screen. Or perhaps it's very quiet and we can rest in that relative lack of mental activity. And really important that we be very open, like no judgment, no overlay of how somehow I'm doing this wrong or I'm not getting it or I'm distracted. Let's try to be welcome to our experience just as it is as we conduct this investigation in this mind space. A friendly, light-hearted investigation. And you might notice that the thoughts don't seem particularly clear or stable. They might be very fleeting and ill-defined, kind of nebulous. And just notice that. We don't need to capture every detail or nuance or even general nuances of the thoughts. Just holding our attention here. And now we're going to narrow our attention to just the mental talk. So if you're not familiar with bringing attention to this space, if you were to count to 10 silently in your mind, where you're hearing those numbers is that mental talk space. So we're going to rest our attention specifically on any words or sounds that come and go. And if there's commentary about the practice, you might hear, I don't know if I'm doing this right. That's mental talk. And if it's very quiet, listen to the silence. Really soak that in. We're not interested at all in the content or meaning. That's when thoughts kind of hook us. We get lost in them. We kind of follow the trail. So we're more noticing just that they're coming and going. There may be like a feeling of a speed, like my thoughts are coming really quickly. There's not a lot of space between them. Or, oh, here's a thought. There's a bit of space, some silence. There might be little spurts of activity. Might seem like a more continual kind of pace. So moment to moment, just observing. And so we're going to move into the note gone part of the practice. So for that, what we want to do is note the ending or vanishing of the mental activity. So that might mean for you that there's, a series of words that come, they're building this thought, and then it completes. And there's an end to that thought, and then a new thought arises. Or a thought may begin and then just kind of falls away before it completes. You can notice that. Or something might happen that to me feels like a needle stuck on a record, kind of stuck repeating the same little sound over and over. It might feel like a thought just kind of starts, but kind of continues to start without completing. So you can note the end or vanishing of that little spurt of mind activity. And this can be really challenging because this is not the relationship we usually have with our thoughts. Usually we're very interested in what's coming next. We're interested in the content as thoughts arise. So if it's a little confusing, feels hard to catch that vanishing or ending point, just notice that might be arising as mental talk. Boy, I'm finding this really hard. There's the end point of that thought. When you catch that moment of vanishing or completion or ending, you could use the word gone in your mind just to help keep on track with the practice, but only if you feel like that would be helpful. And it's okay to guess. And if you find that a lot of your thoughts are visual, you're having a hard time kind of teasing out just the mental talk, that's fine. We can kind of include that as well. That aspect of our thinking mind. So here we're really highlighting that aspect of impermanence. Just a major theme in Buddhism, Nietzsche. And by focusing on the vanishings or gones in our experience, it does lead us or point us to that place that Michael James spoke about when he was sharing Ramana's teachings, that true space of pure awareness from which all experience arises and to which all experience returns. And that's still using dualistic language. So it's a bit of a concession that we speak about it in that way, but just as a way to nudge us without relying heavily on the actual language, more through investigation, having an actual experience. So not just a philosophical understanding, but to know ourselves as that infinite space, that pure awareness. And sometimes we are just aware of like a little murmuring, like it's not even words that we can make out clearly. It's like a little hum. We could also note the end or vanishing of that little subtle activity. And we're working with what is. So we're not getting points for a totally quiet mind. It's not a goal, not attached to any particular outcome. We're simply noting those moments when there's an end or break in that mental activity. And we, as we practice, become more sensitized to noting gons. We may notice them occurring moment to moment. The ending of every moment. As we start to contact gon, you may notice it results in a feeling of tranquility, of spaciousness, or you may feel a bit disoriented, a bit of confusion. So again, not clinging to any particular state or pushing anything away. Just keep recycling any experience or reaction. Keep looking for those gons, those vanishings. And we become disinterested on what's coming next. Focused completely on the endings. So now we're going to relax the attention away from that thought space, that mind space, and open it completely to include all sensory phenomena, physical sensations, sounds in the environment, the thought space. If your eyes were open, you'd include the outer visual field. So open monitoring, open attention. And at this stage, it is like a monitoring. So we're just aware of the rise and fall, of sounds. We may get a sense of where they're coming from spatially, what direction, also how much space they take up. The sound of my breath through my nostrils may seem to spatially take up a small area of space versus there's a loud wind that moves through the trees outside my window. Might seem to spatially take up a lot more area. Body sensations as well included. You might notice little patches of kind of more intense sensation in the body, others of more subtle. And if the mind does contract and land on a particular object, a particular sensory object or event, as soon as you can, kind of disengage and relax the attention wide open to include, once again, everything equally, equal coverage. And if your attention lands on a particular object, kind of narrows, take just a few seconds and see if you can get a sense of what that experience is like. Like, how does it feel? Does it feel like there's a contraction? Like there's a narrowing? There might be a bit of a sense of more solidity. A particular thingness or weight to it. And then as you relax the attention back open for inclusive, wide open focus, see if you can, again, get a sense of what that is like. So we're sensitizing ourselves here. We're training our attention. We're learning a little more about what is happening when I lose this open, wide, broad coverage and awareness. And again, as all of these sensory experiences arise and pass, not going into the meaning or story. That would be getting lost in thought, not getting snagged equal knowing. No pushing away, no clinging to anything. And the last stop on this journey together, this exploration, is to kind of look back or turn back the awareness or the focus onto itself. So asking, what is it that is knowing? What is it that is observing? Oftentimes we might get the answer, well, my mind is observing. But what is observing the mind? So we're turning our attention from what might seem like an outward direction to the objects of our experience, turning it inward to that true space of pure awareness, the knowing. And as you ask yourself this question, the who or what am I? If an answer comes in the form of a thought, that can't be it. Mind space arises and passes within this knowing, pure awareness. Thoughts appear in and as that knowing, the awareness. And as we practice this inquiry, again, we may feel a little bit of a short circuit, like a bit of a scrambling of the mind, like there's no ground to stand on. And that's good. To me, I think that's a really good sign, because we can never get there through the thinking mind. So if we notice our attention going into thought or landing at an object, relaxing it back open. Anytime the attention contracts, just noticing and allowing that. Of course, we have a lifetime of habit looking to objects to get a sense of ourselves. So continuing to just very gently relax the attention over and over, opening, investigating. If the mind is asking, how do I figure this out? The answer is just stop trying. The beauty of these non-dual practices is we don't need to create anything. There's nothing missing. We're just looking in certain directions to these objects. It's like if we spent most of our life kind of walking around the world, just looking down at the ground, not realizing the sky above our head. It's always been there. Just didn't direct our gaze in that direction. So we just have to become less obsessed and identified with the ground. And there's so many good little tidbits there. Very shiny, beautiful objects. We even get obsessed with the pools of sludge and and the piles of dog poo, you know? We get caught. So it may take a little effort to disengage from our attention landing over and over with these objects. And we may have an experience of this open, pure awareness. And then, of course, something catches our eye, and again, our attention's contracted. And the more we practice, we may come to the understanding that there was never anything but sky. That this idea that there was something separation from ground and sky is just an illusion. Maybe not the best metaphor, just kind of came out, but awareness, aware of itself. God knowing itself. Source knowing source. And if the mind is really busy, if you're being pulled into thought or body sensation, some distraction, You can go back to focusing a more deliberate, narrow focus on the mind space again, or breath as a way to stabilize the attention. Ramana talks about surrendering the thoughts to God. What do we do when we have a thought, something comes up that's very pressing, needs an answer, need to fix something, to understand something? Can we surrender that to God? Relieve ourselves of this sense of responsibility or control or ownership. Because when we're looking to practice non-duality, they have nothing to do with us. There's no you to which they relate. And that's a big leap. It's not an easy surrendering. It is the ego death. But we can practice. What would happen if I surrendered the need to know, to plan, or my need for things to be different than they are? And into whose better hands could we possibly offer that? And there's no exceptions. Slow, complete letting go. And any exceptions or arguments, resistance only will come up in the mind. So we're really learning in our practice to be without the mind. And that doesn't mean that thoughts don't come and go, and emotions don't come and go, and feelings, sensations. It's just that our relationship to them changes. Complete shift. You don't look to those impermanent arisings and passings to get a sense of what we are. They are known within and as this pure awareness, this open knowing, the impersonal. I'd like to wrap up our meditation. I printed off a note I had made listening to Shinzen and a Dharma talk he offered on retreat. And he said, "A wise person therefore puts some time and energy into exploring happiness, which is independent of conditions, a source of happiness that will not pass. Ironically, or poetically, or because it's the way it has to be, the thing that doesn't pass is directly accessed, often by paying close attention to sensory impermanence." So that's related to the Gone practice. You know, when we do a Vipassana style practice, it's often to expose, to reveal these aspects of our experience we are often not tuned into, in a way that kind of lessens or weakens the sense of a separate, solid, limited person self. And then there's more the path of surrender, which is, I was talking about offering up our thoughts, our knowing, our confusion, our needs, our desires, our wants to God or source. It's another kind of direction or practice we could take, would lead us ultimately to the same place. So we can bring the formal practice to a close. And what I mean by that is we can shift our posture if you've been holding it for some time, move around. But the beauty of really all meditation practices, there's no need for it to end. Like there's not just a line we cross and the meditation needs to come to an abrupt stop or vanishing or gone. We can continue to maintain a little line to our practice. So let me just